Okay. So pretty much the journal entry that we're gonna have to discuss today is the number seven, which was talked about in the lecture. So pretty much what it was that we have to do was do like a little like diagram where we put like our names and then put like five things that are part of our identities and then discuss like our positive experiences and negative experiences for each of them, or as many as we did. So, I can go first if y'all want. So I did, I'm Hispanic. I am a woman and I'm part of Gen Z. I'm also a student and I'm also white, like as of my race. And so I kind of went over the Hispanic one first just because it resonates with me the most. And basically for like the positive one was how like popular musicians, like I don't know if you guys have heard about like Bad Bunny, but I feel like that really helps me connect to my culture and like it makes me really proud of it. And for the negative one, I said that a lot of people in like the Hispanic community, especially like parents, just kind of ignore the idea of like mental health as an existence. And so they kind of neglect a lot of like kids and like issues about that, or instead of looking at it through like the idea of it being a mental health issue, they like, or the idea that you can like treat it through like, medication or like a behavioral therapy, they look at other different ways and not those. And then as a woman, I feel like I'm happy that, a lot of women can connect about like experiences that we feel that we can like relate about or things that, we go through that are different. And I feel like that is just something that I can be proud of and I like it. It's a good thing. And I feel like a negative thing about it is how a lot of women are quick to like bring each other down, especially in like hard situations. And I don't know, like just I feel like a big thing is like appearance wise. Like I feel like a lot of women bring each other down based on how we look, how we dress, and all of those things. And then another thing was for like the student. I feel like I'm very proud of being able to receive my education and having my parents give me that opportunity to get my education. But I feel like one thing that I don't love is how a lot of students, and I know this is pretty common, they kind of view their self-worth as like but like they look at like based on academics, like okay, if I'm getting bad grades, like I'm not a good student, I'm a bad person, like blah blah blah. So I just don't agree with it just because I feel like there's just so many ways that you can, view your self-worth as. And then the other thing was being part of like the Gen Z. I feel like a lot of people from like my generation, we fight for like justice and like, we want change and we really approach that in like a physical way. But I really don't like how a lot of us, we kind of we rely on social media a lot and not only like through like, like we just always on our phones or like I feel like that's a big part of it. And like, we based on like our opinions a lot based on like what other people say through social media and all of that. And the last thing was like being white as part of like my race. And I'm grateful for the privilege that I get for being like white, but I just don't love how other groups are brought down from like opportunities because of that. And so those are like five things that I talked about. What about y'all?
I can go next, I guess. I said my categories were I also said I'm a woman. I said I'm an athlete. I'm from Raleigh. I'm a student and I'm an environmentalist. And I guess I'll start with woman. So for like a good thing I think is that like it's kind of you kind of always have a support group with like your female friends and like mothers and just like it's kind of like a great support group. And the bad thing is like kind of obviously just experiencing a lot of sexism and like people thinking like you can't be good enough or like people thinking you didn't earn what you got just because you're a woman. So kind of things like that. And then for athlete, my one good thing, well also like I guess I just always played sports in high school and have like always had that as a part of my life and like I try to now do intramurals and like just go to the gym a lot. But I think for me, the good thing was like I think I've made most of my like best friends, like lifelong friends through athletics. Either like I was on teams with them or like just meet people at the gym. I think like my main group of friends that I have from NC State are like people I met doing intramurals freshman year. So that was like really cool. That brought me such a great group of people. And I think the bad thing about it, I guess, that I've experienced, I don't really have this anymore because I just do it for fun, but just pressure in high school to kind of like center my life around that. And like there's a lot of like toxic relationships people have with coaches, and I luckily didn't have a lot of that, but some people did, and it can be like ruin the sport for them or even more than that. So that's definitely a bad thing. And then for being from Raleigh, I'd say a good thing about it is like since I'm still at home, basically, well, near home for college, that can be like convenient because I'm near like my family and that's like helpful and it's nice like already kind of being familiar with Raleigh when in school. And then the downside is kind of just like sometimes I wonder what it would have been like to go somewhere new. I feel like that'd be a good experience and like I might be missing out on it, but there's still more opportunities for that. And then for a student, I think the good thing I put for students is kind of similar, like it's a really good support system in that like we're all kind of going through very similar challenges and like school is a lot of pressure and it's hard and there's so many different uncertainties going on at this stage in our lives. And I think it's nice that you're around so many other people that are also going through a similar thing and you can kind of be there for each other or just like help each other and give each other advice and like help each other make connections and stuff. And along with being a student, you're a student at a school and schools provide lots of resources for people to use, like health centers and there's clubs so you can connect with more people and lots of different tools to utilize. And the downside of it, I think, is kind of similar to what you said, like the pressure of like school and needing internships, and you're kind of, especially like for students in college, like you're on your own for the first time, and that can be really daunting to have all these decisions you need to make. So it's like kind of all the whole picture of it is like just a lot of pressure. And then for the environmentalist one, I said the down, like a bad thing is that I feel like if people know that I like support the environment or whatever, they kind of assume my beliefs and like maybe extrapolate all of my beliefs from that one thing, which is a little frustrating sometimes. And it can even come from maybe me just being like, guys, we should like recycle more. And then people like take that and run with it with all this other stuff. And um, I'd say the positive side is it's really nice, like being in a, because I'm in college and natural resources. So I'm usually around like a lot of other people with like who support the environment, and it is a very like proud feeling, I guess, to feel like connected and know you're making an impact on something good. So that's it.
Okay. Um, I also said a woman and being sisters. I feel like the my same things that like the positive and negatives for being a woman were the same things you guys said. But I also wrote being a younger sister. The positives of that are that my sisters are like my best friends in the world and they've like kind of like formed me. I don't have any brothers. It's just like the three girls. And so I'm really like connected with my sisters and I really appreciate them a lot. My negative is that since I am the youngest one, it's always been like hard to like kind of like keep up with them or like live up to their expectations or like if they've like succeeded more than me, then my parents expect something from me that I'm like not very close to doing, or like there's just like also pressure from them of being like, why did you do that? Or why aren't you doing this? Like, use your time more wisely because they're just like very like controlling and like over me, but they've also been like a great influence at the same time. So I'm grateful for that. Um, Another thing I wrote was like always living on the coast because I was from Cape Cod and then I lived in Beaufort. My positives for that is like it was a very like formative years of my life and I like love the water and I love where I'm from and then I like loved the people it brought me to. Like being in Massachusetts, I still talk to my friends from there every single day. But also like when I tell people I grew up on Cape Cod, they have this is my negative. They have like this expectation that I'm like from a bunch of wealth and that like it's like they act like it was my summer home, but it's like, but we were like full-time locals. Like they just expect so much more than me than I have to offer. I'm like, that's not how I grew up. Like if you're a local on Cape Cod, it's so much different than just having a second house there, because that's kind of like a like you come from lots of money and people just always like, oh, so that was so nice and so easy and so beautiful and so perfect. And I'm like, yeah, but also not. Like you can't just assume that from me. And then I wrote being an artist, which I did a lot more art in high school than I do now. But like a positive was that with that is that when I was doing art, I felt connected to like a lot of the other like people around me. Like we would do murals all together, like in clubs like that, and it was just like so much fun, and you could like collaborate, and like it taught me like a lot of like exploring others around me, but also being in college, I like haven't had the chance. Like now it just seems like a chore. So that's kind of like my negative. Like I haven't had the like time to go out and do like artistic things because I'm like a student all the time. And then I wrote about I'm in Kappa Delta and I wrote about like being in a sorority. It's like another like there's so many expectations and like they just always immediately assume things about me that things that aren't true because like it's like very expensive and I can like barely afford it. But like I'm also very grateful for like all the girls that I've known because they're all like they all do so many different things and I've like learned so much. And I just think it's really cool how we all can just be nice to each other all the time. And I'm like being so honest about that. Like they're like the nicest girls I've ever met. But like when you'd say that you're in a sorority, people are just like, oh, drama, basic, like things like that. And I'm just kind of like, well, that's not like the person I am. But it's been stressful for me. But those are all my things, other than being a woman, but like the same thing, like being around a woman, you like you have such a strong community and like there's so many things, but also there's like downsides like sexism and wage gaps and like you're dumber than men. Like it's like so stupid. But yeah, that's it.
You were saying how like you're a younger sister. I'm an older sister, so like I literally see your perspective through my brother. Like my parents are constantly putting pressure on him to like do his best, do your work, blah blah blah. You're missing this, blah blah blah. And then I'm just like chilling over here, like they don't even look at me. So like I totally see what you mean on that. But let's see. The other things that we can talk about for the journal entry number 5. So we were supposed to sit outside for at least 15 minutes and just listen to our surroundings. And then try to do that without our phones. And after that, those 15 minutes just to write about our experience. So,
I can start if you want me to.
sure.
Okay. I'm just kind of like skimming my journal right here as I go, because this was a couple weeks ago. But for this, I was on like the back patio of my apartment. We just have like a couple outdoor chairs. I said this experience reminded me a lot of an assignment I had to do in yoga last semester. We had an assignment where we had to lay like on the ground for 20 minutes and like not move. Like she wanted us to restart if you like moved a single muscle, but obviously I did not do that. But like we just had to like lay still and like have no sound and just be alone for 20 minutes and like just with how you're like reflect on how your body feels and everything like that. And it kind of was like the same vibe as just sitting outside because I was kind of just like observing things around me. I mean, in my yoga assignment, I was more like observant of like how my body felt rather than like being outside. I was like paying attention to like the nature and everything. Um, the one thing I mainly noticed was the wind that was blowing the trees because like there's like my back porch and then the chairs just like face like there's like a fence but the woods and it was really windy this day apparently what I wrote. And that's like the main thing I was thinking about, literally just the wind the whole entire time, because it's also the main thing that I could feel. I said I enjoyed this experience because it forced me to stay off my phone for a little while and allowed me to relax. Um, yeah, just because I wasn't like, I had my phone on Do Not Disturb, so I did not check it, but like, usually whenever my phone's next to me, I'm just kind of like, what's going on it, or like I have to look at it. But it was easier than I expected to not be on my phone. Um, But I think it was like a good experience for me to just look at the squirrels and stuff. So,
Yeah, I feel like we all need that because I feel like we're constantly either on our phones or on our laptops or some sort of electronic device.
yeah.
We're students, we all kind of have to be, all the
Mhm.
time. But for me, I went on my backyard as well. Um, it's kind of like an open backyard, so I can like I feel like it made me more aware of, oh, like people from behind me could be watching me be in my backyard, just, sitting there doing nothing. But then I feel like I started paying attention on like, like all the little birds. And one thing about me, I feel like I'm really scared of bugs. And so whenever I heard like a little buzz, I just immediately freaked out and I was just so like I just became hyper aware of everything around me. But it was pretty peaceful to just be able to, be out there and not doing anything and, just sit in nature, but also sit in my thoughts, especially, during a time where it was starting to get busier with school, work, and all of that. So, but it was still, it was still relaxing.
When I did it, I also did it in my backyard, and I remember when I was done, I was kind of surprised by like how quickly it went by. Like I thought I was like, oh my gosh, well, like what am I gonna do for 15 minutes? But then it wasn't too bad, and I think I remember noticing like a bunch of like little sounds, much more like animals rustling in the leaves and birds flying around and chirping and like even like leaves falling. I feel like I sometimes only notice leaves falling like if there's like a big gush of wind and they all fall at once. But like if it's calm and they fall, then you don't usually notice that. And I also noticed the wind a lot too. I feel like that was like one of the main sounds I heard the whole time. And it was pretty relaxing and nice. And it kind of reminded me, like when you started talking about the yoga exercise you did, it reminded me of like I've tried like grounding exercises where you notice like you like five things you see and like things you smell
Yeah.
and touch. And it kind of reminded me of that of like it brings you like you notice like all these like tiny things that kind of like ground you or connect you, and then things about yourself that you didn't notice before too, and it's kind of can be calming and relaxing. So it was nice.
Yeah. I feel like we need to be doing that like at least once a day or something.
I think like the
honestly.
other day recently I was walking around and just kind of was like, wait a minute, like if you look around, everyone's just like walking around with their phone in their hand, which is like kind of weird to think about because like when we were little, like no one probably had a device in their hand that we're all like so attached to it now.
That was me today with the umbrellas. Like everybody had an umbrella, but no one was looking at where they were going because they
Mhm.
just had their phone. And I was like, someone's gonna run into me and I'm gonna fall. And I was like hyper like aware of walking today just because those bricks are always so slippery when when it's wet. And so then I was
Mhm.
like had my umbrella and I was like, people are gonna hit me with their umbrella. And I was like looking at everyone and no one was like looking at me. And I was like, why are you guys not scared?
Yeah.
Like I feel like I was
Everyone
gonna
has
fall
their
the
head
whole entire
down
day.
when it rains.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't have an umbrella, but I would like have my head down so my hood would stay on. But then if I
Yeah.
don't see anything, it's like so hard and it's
Yeah.
stressful. I feel like the cars also don't see people as well when it's raining.
No, yeah.
I'd be like walking through like the crossroad and I'd be scared of like a car just speeding and like you know how there's like puddles, like what if they just go over a puddle and splash me?
That
Yeah,
almost happened to me
literally.
I
yesterday.
don't know what these people could do. Okay. And then the last journal entry was number 6. So we were supposed to go on a slow walk for at least an hour and just practice seeing our surroundings based on the Kimmer's grammar of animacy. And so we're supposed to stay off our phones and just look at our surroundings and also what we were experiencing internally. And then basically, the questions are like, what did you notice? Was seeing your surroundings in the way that Kimmer describes feel meaningful, silly, difficult, easy, or familiar or unfamiliar? So for me, basically, I feel like I kind of felt silly at first because, you know, you're just walking and really looking at nature like very like in a detailed way. But I feel like kind of like as I kept on looking at it through the lenses of the grammar of intimacy, it felt more comfortable and more like natural. And for me, I felt more appreciative of like the flowness of nature. And in a way, it kind of felt more like I could compare it to like me as like a human, like just flowing, like how we like having a conversation with another person, like how it just flows and it just I looked at nature and it just kind of seemed that way to me. And it kind of just felt like I could like I described it as like music from the plants, you know, the leaves touching each other, like the wind flowing and hitting making them hit each other. Also I feel like I also noticed the suffering that a lot of these like plants experience due to the fall season because obviously like it's fall, the leaves are falling and you know these branches are losing a big part of them and they have to wait until the next spring for them to come back and it's just kind of like it's kind of sad to also see that happening because you know like they're just it's like a little life falling apart for a temporary amount of time and then it comes back together. So yeah, it's just I feel more appreciative of seeing nature through this.
Yeah, I thought I kind of agreed with the way you described it as like flowing. I felt like as I was walking, I would like hear like the wind blow or like leaves rustle or something. And then once I like zoned my focus in on that, like that made me notice all these other little things that are like around the one thing I had just noticed. And it kind of just like all connected together, which was kind of cool. Is like if I wasn't doing this, I wouldn't have noticed those little things. And I said like the experience felt somewhat familiar because I do enjoy going on like a lot of hikes and runs. And for hikes, like I'm usually not on my phone at all unless I'm like taking a picture or something. So I guess I was used to like observing the nature just as like something to entertain yourself while you're hiking and similar to going on runs. Like when I'm running, I'm usually listening to music. So it's not quite the same as like, because I'm not hearing things, but it's still the same visuals for me of where like my brain needs like entertainment while I'm running. So I'm looking around, like I see one thing and then I'm like, oh, there's another thing, and it kind of all flows together.
For my walk, I went to Lake Johnson and like walked those trails. There were a lot of people there, and so I was kind of like, like felt weird about like stopping and looking at things, but I felt like that was kind of part of it. Um, the main thing I noticed was like the leaves changing still, but then like some trees, like evergreens, like still have all their leaves, and I kind of thought about like how like all the different species of trees are so different, but yet they're like working together in the same ecosystem or things like that. Um, I said seeing the surroundings the way Kimmer did was a little difficult for me. She had like a lot of knowledge about like what plants were like native and stuff like that, or like the history. And so she could like kind of describe like the story between the plants and like how they got there, or like if they were always there. And that I did not have like a lot of experience with. I don't know native plants or anything like that. So like that was impressive that she could do all that. But for me, it kind of made me feel like silly trying to like see the interaction between plants, just because I didn't really know like any like backstory or history. I said I do think her technique does carry a lot of meaning though, because she has like a lot of explanations for things, and like she can really like describe when she was talking about in the video she was talking about the hummingbird in the tree, and she was like this hummingbird, all these like wood chips on the ground came from like this specific type of hummingbird, and she like knew instantly how that was like able to happen. I was like, I would never like look and notice that and like be able to describe that. So I was kind of like, oh well, maybe that could have been because of a squirrel, but like I didn't really have like the knowledge. I also said like how you said earlier that Gen Z is like very digital. I mentioned that in my journal because I was kind of lost because we are so digital and I don't really like ever have to put my phone away. But like in the other journal, like not having my phone was easier than I thought it was gonna be. But I really was tempted to play music, but I did not bring my headphones, so I did not. But like I think the listening was a good part of it. It's just that I didn't really know how to like give these like plants a story and like interactions between each other. So it's kind of hard for me to like see connections between things. But yeah.
I think like something that trying to connect all the plans together reminded me of was a lot of like this past year, like there was a lot of news coverage about forest fires, and it's kind of interesting that like a lot of it, obviously like if the forest fire is man-made, it's bad, but it didn't like people don't always understand that forest fires are actually good for forests because when like a forest is very mature, there's like all this tall bush under the trees. And so there's like less diversity in the underbrush of whatever's under the trees, like on the ground. And when a fire happens, like the tall trees usually survive but it clears out like the underbrush, so it creates new space for like smaller plants and more diversity to happen in a forest, which is kind of like reminded me of the way she connects things because like, well, those things wouldn't be there if it weren't for the fire to have happened in the first place.
Yeah.
I see that.
Yeah, she was like very like when I was watching this video, I was like, how does she know all this? But obviously she went to school for so many years. But the way she was like this plant isn't native. It was brought here because people lived here. I was like so impressed and like that was like very not like I guess it was inspirational to me, but at the same time, I like when I was out there myself, I was like, this is kind of weird. I don't know anything about these plants at all, but I like tried my best to be like connecting things as like much as possible. So
And like, I think something else I find interesting when you think about it that way is like, um, I don't know if you guys learned about keystone species in like environmental communities, and it's so interesting how like one species can like have the whole like community ecological community like sitting on its shoulders. If you take it away,
yeah,
like it would all just kind of fall apart, which is like really cool.
yeah.
Mm, okay.
Yeah, that's kind of everything I said in mine. So
Yeah, mine's like I wrote a lot, but it was just basically like me also comparing it to like pets as well, because like pets, like we are able to see like like my dog, like her name's Bailey, like it's a her, but I feel like we don't treat nature as in like a similar way. We kind of just see it as it, like how like Simmer was saying in the article. So I just felt like that kind of like dehumanizes it, like nature in a way. Um, so yeah, I just thought that was interesting as well.
Yeah,
Mm,
that kind of also like the way you just described that reminded me of Ishmael and how it's like there's nature and there's us and we don't ever like we kind of think nature is like ours to have, and so people don't think about all the little people don't think of the ways it like sustains itself. Like they people view it almost as like, oh well, we're sustaining it. We're the ones who are controlling it.
yeah,
But like it really is like it controls itself.
yeah. It's like that they have their own